Right, let's do this. Let's do this. Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, Network, the Collaborative Leaders Network. This is Craig Ross, CEO of Veris Global. Truth be told, I'm just a collaborative leadership guy who is honored, privileged to lead a scrappy team of inspired individuals who truly believe that organizations that are not aligned fail not only their customers, but they fail their employees as well. That's why we love supporting teams and rapidly aligning, and not just aligning, but collaborative teams so that they can truly do big things. Really excited about our time together. It'll be short, it'll be brief. For those of you who've been a part of a collaborative leaders huddle in the past, you know that this is unscripted. Yes, I have a few questions that I've created in advance, but this is just a unique opportunity for us to come together as a network who are all doing big things by activating the best in those around us. Just a unique opportunity to have an inspired conversation. Before I introduce our guest, first I must introduce the incomparable Sherilyn Jane, my teammate, who will be far more than just a moderator. She's going to be joining us in this important conversation. Sherilyn, please say hello and share with the network some opportunities that they have, please.
Yeah, hi everyone, welcome. So I am going to be fielding some questions today. If you've joined us before, you know how it works. If you post your question in chat for Sujin or Craig, I'll go ahead and call on you and you can unmute yourself. Otherwise, if you want to submit your question anonymously, just send me a private chat and I'll read it on your behalf.
Thank you, Sherilyn. Let's jump in. This is a unique opportunity. If you're not following the success story that is known as Elcon, you should be following the success story. Elcon, 4 years ago, profits falling, market share dropping, talent fleeing, owned by Novartis. Novartis says, okay, we're going to spin off this company. Enter Sujin Lin and other amazing leaders who are tasked with the responsibility of standing up this company, standing up a company that believes when you can see brilliantly, you live brilliantly. I use their products. I'm looking at you through their products right now as we speak. And in 4 inspired years, Sujin Lin and her tech team, she's the CIO at Elcon, been there 3 years, a CIO for well over 12 years. They successfully stand up Elcon. So the market share, of course, gets back to where it was in that #1 position and earnings go up. And they do it in a way that brings out the best in their employees, retaining and attracting top talent. Truly, this is an exceptional opportunity because Sujin Lin is that inspired leader that represents the best in all of us as collaborative leaders. She wins these awards, and you try to ask her about these questions, and she really does want to talk about it because she's that humble. Elcon's got it going on right now, and they will into the future. This is an organization of roughly $7 billion in revenue, roughly 30,000 employees around the globe. And they're doing so well that Sujin Lin has recently been asked by the ELT and her peers have been asked as well to go ahead and just digitize everything. Sujin, will you go ahead and just digitize everything for us so we can drive more value to our doctors and patients? And of course, Sujin Lin and the leaders of Elcon up to the task. We have a remarkable opportunity today to go deep into what it really takes to lead and succeed in transforming a company when it comes to digital, when it comes to this digital transformation that we're hearing so many organizations move through. But we get to talk about what it means to do it from all positions. And that's what Sujin Lin is going to help us further equip ourselves in doing successfully. Sujin, I'm hyperventilating with excitement. Would you please say hello to the Collaborative Leaders Network around the world?
Hello, everyone. And Craig, thank you for such a nice introduction. You know, there are many things we do, but the most important things we do here is to help people see better.
You got it, Sujin. Thank you for joining us. And Sujin, we're going to jump right in. Here's our big question. Would love to know how we answer that. We've got roughly 45 minutes to do that. How do you effectively enable a digital transformation, including from wherever you play in the organization, whatever level of leadership? How do we do this, Sujin?
You know, I quite often get asked a question about digital. And and how you go about it. And I think we need to level set a little bit. And that is, digital is not one thing, right? It's not about technology only. Digital is a collection of many things. It's about the culture, it's about the talent, it's about change, adapt, change management, it's about customer experience, it's about many things. And so, it's really important to know that we don't associate digital with the technology only. So let me start with that, Craig.
I think that's really critical. And you actually used a traditional word there, change management. But Sujin, I've had the pleasure of working with you and your leadership team. And in change management, the old way of doing it, in my opinion, is that leaders would stand behind that curtain of process, right? And they would, here's what we need to say at this point, here's what we need to say at this point. You're actually demonstrating change leadership. And that change leadership is about engaging and activating the associates of Elcon along the way. Why is it that some organizations, they sign up for this big initiative, they buy into it, but then perhaps they get distracted? What happens as it relates to keeping let me ask a different question. What's essential as it relates to focusing on the human component? How do you maintain that focus on the human component in this transformation effort?
Yeah, so one thing that we have to keep in mind is that digital is not what you tell people. Digital is about, really bring people together. People need to touch it and feel it and believe in it. And so at the end of the day, digital is about that experience. It's about the outcome we are going to deliver to people. And so with that in mind, change management is paramount, right? I mean, you cannot just keep telling people we need to be digital. It's really how you convey that ultimate goal to people and let them feel it. And so, for example, we are in the healthcare industry, right? And so if people believe digital is going to save life faster, if people believe that we are going to provide a better care for patient and going to improve their life, we will all do it, right? And so for that reason, I think, that's why how we convey and how we kind of bring together to believe in what we do and feel it and touch it and knowing we are making differences, that's what I call change. And that's what I call how we manage them.
Let's drill down on that a little bit. I know you, I would consider you a visionary leader. I can see the faces of those in the network here. I know several of them. I would call them visionary leaders as well. There is this little thing called what do they call it? Curse of knowledge bias, right? It's when we know something and we make the mistake that other people know the same thing. How do you transfer that vision? How do you create the vision so that others in the organization can see, touch, and feel that same vision? How do you do that?
Yeah, so one thing that I learned, Craig, actually from your course, is about understanding the business imperative. You probably remember the conversation we had before, and how we really translate that, what I call the business imperative into human imperative. So, if you allow me to kind of elaborate that a little bit further, and I think, what's important is that, as a leader, we have to be clear on that business imperative and really get people to understand what we try to accomplish. So if this is about improving care for people, improving people's lives, conveying that and consistently messaging to the organization what the business value we need to achieve and really help create that shared reality to kind of bring people together. I think that is, that is important. And that's where you kind of really bring some of those bias into something that really bring people together. That's kind of my short answer. And but keep identifying the benefit and rewards of achieving that imperative is important. But articulating the penalty if we don't is equally important.
I think that's really critical, and we're going to come back to that a little bit later. I've got some questions for you around fear. Yet you mentioned in your answer there this idea of the importance of creating a shared reality. We all know the culture eats strategy for lunch, of course, and so the ability for people to articulate the data, the perspective, their point of view as it relates to the process of change becomes paramount, because if we don't get that, we can't have that shared reality. I think that's really essential. One of the things, and by the way, Sherilyn, I'm going to go ahead and ask one more question of Sujin, but then I'd like to go to our network. And so after this question, I'd love to hear from our network what questions they have for Sujin. Again, folks, we can text those, or excuse me, chat those to Sherilyn. My follow-up question, Sujin, this idea of course, we all know about the importance of tapping into motivations when it comes to any sort of transformation or change. One of the things that I see leaders with the best of intentions struggle with is they feel like it's good enough if we simply tell people why we have to change. We need to digitize our operations to stay ahead of the competition. We need to digitize this process so that we can drive more value to the doctor or patient. Yet the masterful leaders I'm seeing, in addition to doing that, they'll actually inquire. They'll actually ask the associate, their teammate, from your perspective, why do you believe this step is important? I see a lot of leaders going to stop there. I'm going to ask a sort of a backward focused question of you. Why is that leaders going to stop at asking and inquiring about personal motives? And what do you do to help your team get past that barrier?
So Craig, if I may, I wanted to share with everyone sort of a story that we have, the journey we just have gone through, right? And Craig, you may have heard about this before, but you mentioned that Alcon has gone through this separation process. We successfully took a $7 billion business apart from this $60 billion business. Both sides are incredible, right? And this is a program what we often refer to as a moonstone program. And if you think about, first of all, we only got 2 years to make this happen. And taking two big companies apart is not easy at all. And so, we knew that it's going to be a stretch, and if we just do the basic things that we have to do in 2 years, we really come short, quite frankly. And so we developed this global IT strategy and to take things apart. And we kind of said that, we're going to focus on standing up the company as a separate company. But what the team has done is that they took on beyond just what this separation, right? We established this holistic digital governance architecture in order to support the digital strategy. And it's a very ambitious program because it is mission critical. It's time bound. We are taking on more than what we really more than what we can do. And yet to date, we actually completed the program way ahead of the target. And by the way, we did all that and coincide with the many transformations that happened within the company. We got ERP system implementation, Workday, Viva, you name it. Lots of things happening on top of a COVID pandemic.
Yeah.
And so as I think the journey that we have gone through, one of my team members used this. It's like initially, this is like when we were kind of going through that process, it's the big brother did not want the little brother go, right? I mean, you're kind of going through this battle in terms, no, you shouldn't do this, we should do this, and so on and so forth. And but I think what was really important for outcome team, that we realize is that this is our opportunity to really make something big happen, do big things. Good enough is just not going to cut it. We have this opportunity to do something that's probably the biggest things that we can do in our career. And so, I think it's really how people believe in what they can do to make things happen and understand the shared reality and the important business imperative. And that's how we make things happen.
Yeah, if for those in the network here that have not had the opportunity to shadow Sujin Lin and see her in action, I want to reinforce something that she's done. Didn't quite reveal it there. That story shows the effect of what you do, Sujin. But I'm going to add that there's that moment where, and I'll use your words, believe, where the execution of the transformation becomes literally personal for your teammates, for the associates within IT. And I think that's a really key component. In service to the network, I'd just like to offer that you might have some teammates that say, hey, I don't want to probe into someone's personal business, asking them why this is important to them. I want to encourage you to use that platform statement, and you can even literally say, hey, I know I don't typically ask this question. Or you could literally say, I know we don't talk about this very much, but I really truly want this to be meaningful for you too. And so therefore, I'd like to ask, why is taking this step? Why is this action? Why is this project? Why is this transformation important to you? Then we get the outcomes that Sujin's talking about, where you get that personal belief in what's possible and follow through. Sherilyn, our network, what questions do we have from the network for Sujin?
Yeah, I had a great one come in that wants to remain anonymous, so I'll just go ahead and read it. The question is, I totally get that we need to transform and move deeper into digital, but this is yet another transformational change that the organization is selling to us. And I don't see that they're addressing the fatigue that we're feeling from executing one big change on top of another. What can we do about that?
Okay.
A good question, Sujin. Fatigue. How do you address that?
Yeah. So I think, as we think about a change, as a leader, we truly need to be sensitive to the number of things that we have going on within the organization, right? And so how we create that balance between what I said, the existing operation or the current capability, and as well as pivot to a new model. How we create that balance is really important. And how you really think about, digital is about speed, but how you really balance that with quality is equally important as well. And so I do think, we are all leaders of the organization. And this is something that what I would ask everybody to think, right? I mean, quite often, believe me, digital is going to create problem for another. And this problem, because we sometimes by going fast, sometimes we create problems, a debt that we have to we create for the other area. And so, but keeping in mind, what we need to focus on is what we are trying to achieve. We try to achieve the best business results and for my company, the patient outcome as fast as we could. And by the way, if we don't do it, the competition may be doing it. And ultimately, it's our patient potential not getting the benefit that we have in mind. And so it's quite important to think through how we really balancing the two. And as a leader, really thinking through how we create that team dynamics to support everyone. And so it is not one thing, and it is a combination of several things. So think about carefully and understand how to balance them. I think it's probably important things to carry out.
I think embedded in your answer, and I don't know if others would agree or disagree with this, but from my perspective, embedded in your answer is also this understanding that the transformation, we're not here to fix. This isn't broken. This is good to great, that journey, if we can use the phrase that's so well known now. This is the process. And I believe everybody's well aware of the fact that change is actually permanent now. This is the way it is. Um, One of the things I got as a follow-up, Sujin, how do you, I see leaders, the ones that seem to be overwhelmed, stressed, fatigued, multiple reasons for that, but there seems to be an attachment to the way they want things to be versus the leaders that bring this co-discovery, bring this enthusiasm for creating and building and developing something. They These latter leaders tend to bring a more consistent energy. Do you share that perspective? And if so, how do you see that cultivated?
Yeah, so Craig, I think probably one thing we need to highlight is that, as we kind of go through the transformation, as we go through the co-discovery process, there's a huge elements related to people that we kind of have to bring along. And very importantly, as a leader, what we need to keep in mind is that this is not about just providing productivity tool to people. It is about actually getting people to work together. And it's important to understand that quite often we think that digital is about speed, which is true by all means. But it's also important to know that people cannot work 7 by 24. Machine may be able to, but people can't, right? And so how can even if we have a faster machine, but we don't have the people come along with it, we cannot deliver the expected result. And so kind of going through that understanding in terms of how we can really operate at the speed of a digital, and how people can really be part of the equation is important. And not everything is under our control to deliver faster. And so, and by the way, even if we can deliver product faster and people don't know how to use the product, or people don't have the information to use the product we deliver, then we are not going to achieve the objective of the result. And so I think going back to your whole point of a co-discovery, kind of really bring people to understand what a digital journey really entails, and how we kind of really bring the human side of the equation into this whole journey is important. And that's what we as a leader need to do. There are times you got to really help people to cope with the change.
I'm going to make sure then, thank you, Suji. I'm going to make sure then that we do the best we can to answer that question from the network. In summary, then, I'm going to reinforce something I heard Suji just share, that it's not just a productivity tool, this digital transformation, it's how we work together. That becomes critical. That might be my insights in an instant as we wrap up our time together later on. I want to emphasize then what I'm hearing
Craig,
you say. Please.
Craig, if you don't mind, I do think there's one thing I'd like to mention, and that is, when we talk about co-discovery, one thing we also need to be aware is that digital is really not about one organization, right? I mean, the most important priority is really for us to work together with a cross-functional team, and to really start with that learning, fail fast, work through the challenges, and really create that improvement one at a time of working together. And so don't forget that it's there's the team outside of our immediate area that we can leverage.
Strategy execution is a social process. That's a well-known fact. And what you're reminding us then is to address that head on. My encouragement for the network, we can all get better at this. I don't believe, my personal opinion is that there's an easy answer to the change fatigue. the intensity that we're all facing as it relates to a COVID era where we're working in isolation, now coming back to the workplace. If we're thinking that there's a magic wand we can shake and we'll have an answer to that, I don't believe it exists. So what's the best way to get there? It's to have the conversation. And that's what Sujean's reminding us of, is bring the conversation to our team. And then there's something else I want to emphasize that you mentioned, is that focusing on what we can control, as opposed to what my mind likes to do and drift and start focusing on what we can't control, which of course only exasperates the fatigue. Sherilyn, let's come back to you. Other questions from our network?
Yes, we do actually. Sumit had a great question and he'd actually like to ask himself. So Sumit, if you want to take yourself off of mute and ask your question.
Perfect.
How are you?
Doing well, Sumit. Good to see you.
I had a quick question. First of all, thank you, Sujean, for being available and sharing your thoughts. So, my
By the
question
way,
is,
it's the voice on my side
Sherilyn,
is a little bit
Sumit, you're breaking
cracking.
up. You're breaking up. Did you? We got a connection issue. No worries.
I'm calling from my office phone, so I'm not
Yep.
sure if is it better now?
Not quite. And so, Sumit, I'm going to ask you to forgive the internet. And
He
are
actually
you able to? Did you
sent me
chat
his
the question?
questions. Yep,
Okay,
he sent it
perfect.
to me, so I can go ahead and read that.
Perfect.
The question is, what is a good business model for Alcon's digitalization effort? A centralized COE model versus decentralized efforts in business units with rich domain or product focus?
Wow.
Good question, Sumit. That's what I'm talking about. Good luck with that one, Sujean.
All right, Sumit, this is a very specialized questions. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a generic answer. However, I mean, we can always elaborate a little bit further. And whether it's a COE, Center of Excellence, or whether it's a COP, Community of Practice, and whether it's a centralized, federated, or decentralized model, I don't think there's a straight answer for one. It really depends on where your company sits and what you're really trying to do. And so there is a benefit of a center of excellence, because where you want to bring the competency together and continue to really push the competency better and better to the point that your delivery of a capability, there's no question about doing it. But there is certain activity that a community of a practice is more important. You want to put an expertise where it sits with a different pocket of the business, but yet bring the community together to share the practice and get better and better at it. And so I don't think that there's a magic for centralized or decentralized. And by the way, if you go with the federal model, it's also going to be more challenging because it takes a much bigger effort for coordination and collaboration. And so you kind of have to be very much looking at what problem we try to solve, and what the level of the team maturity, and what you're really trying to, what it would take to get there. And so it's a very general answer in some way, but that would be kind of my response to your question. I'm happy to take anything specific if you wanted to have that conversation separately.
Sumit, I've seen you nod there in the video. Thumbs up on that. There it is. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah,
I actually have a
thank you.
follow-up to Sumit's question. Sujean, sometimes we see organizations spend a ton of time debating the model, as opposed to what I see you and your leadership do quite well. I mean, how many associates? I'm rounding the numbers. You got roughly 600 folks within IT, I think, right across
More than
Alcon.
that.
Yeah, global organization. And I see you very effectively align your entire organization to the plan, to the model. What advice do you have for us as collaborative leaders as it relates to getting past the debate about the model and actually aligning to the model that's been identified or selected?
Craig, I go back to this business imperative, what we really try to accomplish, right? And so it's about delivering the results, right? And so what we need to keep in mind is that whatever we do every day, it's a team sport. Alignment, collaboration will win us the play. So so aligning to the model really kind of get people to believe in what we really try to make happen, and knowing that we really need to rely on each other to make it happen. It's not one person. I would tell you I'm the least capable person to deliver the result that my team has accomplished. I couldn't do anything without them. But let the team to believe that this is truly a team sport and we all have a place to play, and aligning that into the right position. And that's how it's going to win us that particular play. And it's important. And as a leader, I'll be the first person to say it's quite okay to ask for help. It is when you ask for help, it's not a sign of a weakness. In fact, I do think it is a strength. When we know how to really leverage each other to complement our ability to deliver, that is a better things to do, and it create a better team. And so I think that is something I would say to the leader of this audience. It's constantly really thinking about how we can complement each other and how each other can bring different value to the situation.
I remember a moment with your team early on. We were talking about this alignment, and when we think about what the business intelligence gurus will advise us on is what's the data we need to look at. You talked about that shared reality. Let's align on the data we'll use to make decisions. Of course, how do we problem solve? Are we problem solving effectively as a team? And then, of course, the decisions that we'll make. And I've noticed you with your team that very efficient in that process. I think for the rest of us in the network, I think that's an important reminder, because at some point we realize, wow, we can continue to stall on the problem solving and rationalize that we need more data, rationalize that we might not have the right model, versus agree on the data we'll use, understand how we problem solve, and then make the decisions and get behind those decisions. And of course, the team element that you talked about, I've seen your team do that well. Sherilyn, I want to keep coming back to the network. What other questions might we have?
Yes, I have another question that's going to remain anonymous. The question is, what do you think about a network of digitization support to cascade out the culture?
Interesting question. Repeat that for me one more time.
What do you think about a network of digitization support to cascade out the culture?
I actually like the concept. It is not one place, it's a network, and it's a network of a support to make something happen. And truly, I think, I'm not quite sure exactly how the question is referring to, whether it's an internal network or it's external network. Regardless, I think that the truth of the matter is that today, in order to achieve digitalization or digital transformation, you cannot do it alone. And you cannot do it alone within your company. And so if you think about the way how we use data, for example, it's no longer about using the data you have within the company. It's about using information in the broader space in order to make to bring the result together. So case in point, right? I mean, if you think about, as an eye care company, it's not just about what we sell and what product that we offer. We got to listen to the consumers out there, our customers. We got to think about our doctors and pretty much the community that we have to work with. And potentially we have to explore information that may not be in our community, but telling us something. And so really understand how to expand the network and leverage the network, not just internally, externally. I do think it's super important. You cannot do it alone.
Sujin, your answer highlights something, and I think this is a word of caution for the collaborative leaders in the network here. Most of us came up through an era where we were focused and taught to do what? Develop high-performing teams. But there is a clear trend in the research, and this is where organizations get into trouble, is they'll actually, hey, we got to build our culture, got to build our culture. But they'll actually build the wrong culture if it means we're supposed to be a culture of innovation, a culture that drives innovation. And what we're seeing in the literature and what you just demonstrated in your words, Sujin, is that yes, teams are, high-performing teams are important, but even more important is the high-performing network. It's the leader who can actually say, yes, my team is delivering on the responsibilities, but if that is not in coordination with this network from concept to consumer, that value stream, the organization's not going to benefit from my high-performing team. And so I really applaud your answer and really want to shout that out as a watch out for the collaborative leaders, that this is the era of going beyond just leading a high-performing team. Cheryl-Lynn, other questions? We're on a roll here with our network. I'd love to hear some more.
Yep, I do have another one. The question is, I have colleagues who I think are afraid of the acceleration towards digital. In my opinion, I don't think they see themselves as able to keep pace with new technologies. How do you best support such folks?
How do you best support?
How do you best support?
Yeah. I do think people move at a different speed and different pace. And it's really important that we focus on the team dynamics, the people, the trust, the empowerment, and really constantly encourage people to speak up. This is not just about you trying to convince them that this is the only way to do it. Really engaging people constantly, really get people to speak up and tell us what their concerns are, is important, right? And so that's what the leader needs to be ready for, really.
Yeah. I think really key to that, Sujin, you're triggering something for me that I think is critical is, heck, I can't even run my iPhone. I constantly, my kids are teaching me how to actually use my iPhone. The ability to be our authentic selves within a culture is critically important. And again, Sujin, I want to keep coming back to what you're doing so our network can benefit from what you're modeling. And that is you're creating a psychologically safe place for people to tell their truth. And a culture where one associate honors that diverse thought, that diverse talent, that diverse experience. And so that I can actually speak up and say, I this technology, I don't understand it, or hey, I don't quite understand the purpose of what we're driving to the end user here. It's a little bit over my head. To be able to have that honest conversation means we don't have to hide, which means we can have the conversation the business needs us to have. I'd encourage our network, ask our teams this question. Are we able to tell our truth about what we think about technology? Are we able to actually talk about what it really means, and assess our muscle for doing so? Sujin, additional thoughts on that, or should we follow up with another question?
Yeah. And I also would say this important things, right? Because today things really changing quite fast. And what we do sometimes is not right. Okay. And our ability to really understand what we didn't do well and make the necessary adjustment along the way is important. I would say that the most challenging things for us as a leader is that today, people do feel like they are changing tires while they are driving the car, right? Things are just changing so fast, and it's not easy, and it's not going to get easy in the future. And so be really sensitive to kind of go through the process and keeping abreast with the change and understand the problems that we have created, what we have to deal with, and all the new issues are coming up constantly is important. It's a challenging time, and be sensitive to how your teams are feeling is probably
Yeah.
on top of our mind.
You know what, Whitney Trammell, the amazing Whitney Trammell, just chatted something I think is really important. It ignites a question for me to you, Sujin. This idea of letting go of perfection, because change is so so fast, so furious. This is as slow as it's ever going to be right now. Well, how do you? I talked earlier about leaders getting attached to the way things should be, and from that attachment comes frustrations when it isn't the way I think it should be. What do you do? What's your inner dialogue around not getting attached to perfection? What's your inner dialogue to do what you just said, and to which Whitney responded to, this being okay with imperfection? What's your inner dialogue?
I think I shared this with some of the people, and I tell people what I love to do. And I say what I love to do is solve a complex problem, or solve the same problem, but in a new way, in a better way. But what's most important things I love to do is constantly learning, celebrate the learning. And by that, I'm telling you, it's not perfect, right? I'm solving the same problem potential in a different way. That we just have to learn how to celebrate the learning process, because I just noticed that I was kind of curiously going through the names in your the gallery, and I saw some of my team right here, and this is true, right? I mean, I don't. If I would be going for that perfect score, I wouldn't have never graduated from college, right? Because if 4.0 is what you are going after, just think about me, right? I mean, I came to this country, English is not my first language, and try to kind of keep up with everything was impossible. And so you kind of have to really understand what you try to accomplish, and really balance that, not learning, and balance that, what I'm good at or what I'm not so good at, but how can I really optimize, kind of achieve that ultimate result of what I'm trying to accomplish. It's important. So don't look for perfection, but understand within your network of the people that you're working with, who can bring something to complement what you are not really good at it, and make that to be a really community of result is important. It's not about you, but it's about what we're trying to accomplish.
Your words are so important. It reminds us that changing behaviors is not an intellectual exercise. It's the business of the heart. One thing I wanted the network to experience, Sujin, in our brief huddle this morning, this afternoon, this evening, was getting to see your spirit and how you really operate. And you blend this amazing vision, the ability to be direct, clarity, along with that human component. It's a unique talent. Sherilyn, any other questions from our network? I've got one or two more here as we get close to the conclusion of our huddle.
No, you answered all the questions regarding digital transformation, and our network is set.
All right, okay. I've got one more for you, Sujin. A change process, of course, requires us to show up differently, constantly changing my best every single day. Got to change my best, change my best. We know from studying the human brain, and those who, of course, do the research on this, that it causes human beings to focus inwardly. Right, I've got to change, and suddenly I start thinking about myself, which means the more I think about myself, the less I'm thinking about, of course, the end user in a digital transformation. Right, why we're actually doing this, the patient, the doctor, the customer. What counsel do you have for us as collaborative leaders to ensure that, yes, we're acknowledging, honoring the individual as they move through change, but how do we maintain that focus on ultimately what matters most?
Very thoughtful a question, and I'm not sure if I have the equal or thoughtful answer to your question. How we maintain, zero in on specific what you really try to get out this question for me, Craig. One more time.
Yeah, it's about focus for me. And we know that change causes people to think about themselves. That's how we're wired as human beings. And so, how as a leader do we allow that, honor that? We need to honor that. Yet at the same time, we need to stay focused on why we're doing this, right? The end user in a digital transformation, the output, the effect for our customers. And so, how do you navigate that focus?
Yeah. So again, I think it's there's an interesting dynamics in the in how we do things, right? I mean, there's an inner focus, and there's a focus that we have to deal with from an external part of the world, and how we really constantly get ourselves thinking beyond our immediate concern. That is something that I do think it's probably a constant reminder of what we do and what we are trying to accomplish, right?
Mhm.
It's not about ourselves. It's not about the individual. It is more about, as a team, what difference we can make and what result we could accomplish. One thing that if one thing that we have learned in our career, in anything that we do, is that, and there's a Chinese saying that, whenever you work with 3 people, one of them could become your teacher.
Hmm.
And the reason I use that as an example is that, there's so much that we can learn from each other. And, and the more you really expand your focus to think about how each other can help us succeed, and how we can help others to be successful, it will change our mindset. And it's not about myself, and that constant learning, and that I mentioned earlier, that celebrating the learning is something that's what we should be going after. And so by really taking our focus beyond just our immediate self, and really understand how we can keep learning, and how we can impact others, and how others can impact us, I do think that's probably the best way to really extend beyond that self-focus.
Yep. What we just saw Sujin do right in front of us, Michael Young pointed it out. I'll use slightly different words, is what Sujin does, and I'm going to say so many other leaders at Elcon. I think it's a big part of the culture of innovation performance that you're driving, is the leaders of Elcon are present with the associates through the process. And that's just a reminder for us as collaborative leaders. It's so tempting when we're talking about transformation that we hide behind that curtain of process, I'll call it. And here's when we talk, here's what we say, then we wait another 2 weeks, and then here's what we say, and here's when we engage with associates. Sujin does it differently. She's present. She's present in the emotions of the teammates, honoring, and then of course guiding that focus to where it needs to be. Sujin, thank you for that. It's been a productive huddle as always. We're going to come back to our insights in an instant. We'll start with Sherilyn in just a moment, but first, a quick blurb. We've got the resources there, of course, that you can see on the slide in front of you. The Do Big Things book, a lot of the resources in there, the tools that you saw from some of your fellow collaborative leaders in the huddle here referencing. And of course, I hope you'll join us on LinkedIn and the blog and so forth. Our next collaborative leaders huddle, August 3rd, hope you'll put that time in your calendar. The amazing Sean Westcott, another collaborative leader, works for PepsiCo, will be joining us from Switzerland for another conversation. Excited about that. And our insights in an instant, an opportunity for us to identify what's our big takeaway, if you will, For those of you in the network, if you'd like to put that in the chat space, we'd love to see yours. Sherilyn, your insight in an instant, what are you walking away with?
Yeah, so mine was a conversation that we had earlier about successful transformation and tapping into the personal motives and asking the co-discover questions on what their motives are. But then also, and Craig, you had reiterated this at the end, was not becoming so attached to the outcome, and really coming from a collaborative space and co-creating the outcome. I think that that's super important.
Excellent. Thank you, Sherilyn. And as always, thank you for co-hosting and all the important work you do. My insight and instant was Sujean's words early on, getting really grounded in the fact that a digital transformation is not just a productivity movement. It's not just a productivity tool, but it's actually how we will work together more effectively to drive improved outcomes. Sujean, your insight in an instant.
Right. And thank you for your thoughtful words right there. I wrote them down because it's very impactful to me. But I do think, we speak about digital transformation today. And I do think one thing that we all need to realize is that today, the traditional model that we have is just no longer enough. And there are things that we need to continue to think about how we can leverage to really create that extra, that plus for any complaint. And you don't need to be in R&D to innovate. You don't need to be the chief of revenue or sales to innovate. You certainly don't need to be a CIO to innovate. But what's important is that there are challenges emerging every day, and you must collaborate with others to overcome it. Digital transformation is a team sport, and it's not one player's job. Not one single person can do it all. You can enable digital transformation from whatever the position you have.
Sujean Lin, thank you. Thank you for giving us your insights and your wisdom. And thank you, everybody in the Collaborative Leaders Network, for spending this time with us. We'll look forward to seeing you August 3rd for our next Collaborative Leaders Huddle. Remember, leadership matters, but only teams deliver. Thank you for leading forward in the world, everyone. Best wishes.